Hey, everybody, welcome to Around the Paul. It is game week for the Clemson Tigers, and we're going to be talking about the matchup this week in South Beach between the Clemson Tigers and the Miami Hurricanes. We're going to break down the game, talk key players on each side for Clemson and for Miami, and we might even throw out a prediction or two before the end of this episode. Glad to have everybody watching. Before we get started, however, let's give a shout out to our great sponsor, and that is Arden's Burger and Grill, located at 1280 18 Mile Road in Central South Carolina. And they are your destination for all of your game day food needs. Home of the delicious double dipped wings. Clifton and I can vouch they are absolutely fantastic. So go see our good friends at Arden's Burger Grill in Central at 1280 18 Mile Road, and they'll be sure to take good care of you. So let's jump right into it. We've got a special guest with us tonight who's going to help us talk about this game, Kappa Kane. He's a beat writer that covers Miami. And Kappa, we appreciate you joining us tonight and staying up a little bit later to talk about this big game on Saturday.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me, Garrett and Clifton. Always excited to talk ball and always excited to talk about my Miami Hurricanes.
Absolutely. Well, we're just going to jump right into it. And we always like to give our guests the floor first. So, can you tell us a little bit about the state of the Miami football program right now? It's hard times a little bit the last couple of weeks, and trust us, we've been on the receiving end of some luck just as bad, and had to be a crushing feeling the way that the Georgia Tech game ended, and then North Carolina pulls away last week. So, how do you see this Hurricanes team approaching Saturday and coming into the team that perhaps reeling a little bit, or do they group it? Do they come in confident?
I think they'll be confident. I'll be honest with you; they've been a very adamant team, if you will, about taking each week in and of itself in its own silo, not allowing the prior week's game to seep in, whether good or bad. The coaching staff's done a really good job, and the young men have been responding to that very well. So I do think that they're going to come in, one, very confident, two, very humble, right? Because of the last 2 weeks, the way that things have gone. We've actually outplayed our opponents both games, but just ended up losing one by, a couple of points and the other by, I guess, 10 points or so. The key that's been harming us, if you will, has been turnovers, right? Just key turnovers at key positions during the game that really we were unable to overcome. Secondarily, I'd say some unnecessary penalties. Not that any are necessary, but just some really boneheaded things that some of our guys have done, including coaches, and those have really set us back. So if they can clean up those two things, ball security should be focal point one. And then cleaning up some of those dumb penalties, I think we'll have a pretty good game. We're very evenly matched, if you will. If we look at the stats, from top to bottom, we've kind of performed the same way. And doing a space with some guys yesterday from Clemson, they echoed the sentiments that I just gave. You guys have had some trouble with fumbling the ball. Not necessarily with the pass. You guys only have a couple of interceptions, but 11 fumbles, and you've lost 8 of them. So, looking at the tail of the tape, everything looks like it'll be a competitive game, right? And I don't think the spread's very large as a result of that. But I do think that we are a different team than you guys have seen in the past. We are a team that is in a rebuild. As you know, we were 5-7 last year. We came up to Clemson playing a true freshman quarterback, and things weren't going well. We were swapping him out for another young quarterback who's no longer on the team. So we've been feeling our way and bumping ourselves along the walls, on the way to where we are right now. But I'm very confident in the team. I think that they are headed in the right direction. I think that Mario Cristobal and his staff are doing a very good job. Yes, there have been some mistakes made, but none of us are perfect. So I still think the kids have the confidence in them, the parents have the confidence in them, and the recruits still have the confidence in them, as evidenced by us picking up a really important 4-star today. You'll see a different team on the field this week.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. And Clemson, he can also speak to this from the Clemson side of things. And you mentioned the turnovers, and it's a very good point because Miami has struggled at times with the turnover margin, as has Clemson. And Dabo Swinney, he made a point. He pointed this out prior to the last game against Wake Forest. And when you go back and look, I think it's very telling. Clemson comes into this ball game. The Tigers are 4-2. And in their 2 losses, they lost the turnover margin by a fairly wide margin. And in 3 of the 4 wins, they won the turnover margin. In fact, the Wake Forest game 2 weeks ago was the only game that we've won this year in which we lost the turnover margin. We had 1 turnover, and Wake had none. So, Clifton, I think holding on to the football for both the Hurricanes and for our Tigers, that's paramount Saturday. I think whoever does that the best has the best chance of coming away with a win.
Yeah, I mean, looking at both of these teams, like I think we kind of mirror each other when it comes to like how we've lost games and different things like that. You know, Clemson, like you said, when they lost, just stupid turnovers.
Yeah,
and so and I mean, same thing with Miami. I mean, that Georgia Tech game was just I didn't understand. I didn't understand it, right? And the fumble that we had against Florida State, like it was just a missed block, a missed assignment, and you know, missing field goals. Like I think I heard a stat today. Actually, I was listening to another podcast, and they said Clemson's 4 of 10 in field goals, and so it's
an ugly stat. Really
I mean, it is an ugly stat, and I mean, I've said this in just about every one of our podcasts since we lost. I mean, we're 3 plays. You hear Dabo say this all the time. We're literally 3 to 4 plays from being undefeated. Like it's crazy. And I mean, the same thing with Miami. I mean, besides, I didn't get to watch the end of the North Carolina game, but I watched most of the Georgia Tech game. And you know, if they don't turn that ball over, they win that ball game. Like, and they're 4 and they're possibly you're talking about 2 6-0 teams possibly right now if neither team makes dumb mistakes.
Yeah,
so
and you know that's why they play the game, right? On paper, everything looks great, but you know, sometimes the Jimmies and the Joes, you know, they play an intricate role in the game, and just for you know, clarity's sake, that fumble that they called on that running play where everyone wanted Coach to kneel wasn't a fumble, right? It was shown to be not a fumble in the stadium. It was shown on the replay on the broadcast, but the ACC ref said they didn't have enough to overturn it, you know, and Don Chaney's arm was clearly down on the ground prior to the defender ripping the ball out. But kudos to them; they made the plays. You know, the breakdowns on defense, it was a perfect storm for them to be able to come back and win the game with the last 20 seconds, right? We held them to about 150, 170 yards the entire game until the last 20-something seconds, and they got about 75 yards on us to score the game-winning touchdown. So, you know, sometimes it just shakes out the way it shakes out. And, you know, pressure makes diamonds, and we're hoping that the kids have learned from this. I'm sure on your end, Dabo's been preaching to them, hey, next play, right? You can't wallow in it. Looking at, you know, the matchup on paper, again, I think it's going to be a competitive game. I do think Miami has an advantage in a couple of ways. One, obviously, they're playing at home. It's a night game. We typically play well at night at home. Thinking back on that Notre Dame game, you know, several years ago, we came in and just pounded them in front of a very decent crowd. I think we're going to have a very good turnout for this game. There's a lot of, you know, commotion around it. The ACC network's going to be there on site again. So it's going to be an exciting game, and I'm looking forward to it. I think another thing that probably doesn't get discussed enough in terms of Miami, every game that we've played, all 6 of the games that we've played thus far, we've had rain in every one of those games, either during the game or just prior to, you know, soaking the field up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see. I believe they're forecasting, you know, sunny skies. It should be pretty warm down there Saturday. So it should be interesting to see what we do through the air without having to worry about the ball being wet and, slippery.
Yeah. So I heard a stat, also another stat today. I didn't know this, but Cristobal hadn't won an ACC game. Like, talk about that for a minute. Like
You mean
what
at home?
at home? Yeah, at home. I'm sorry. Talk about that. Like, what is it about Miami at home during ACC games that they're struggling so bad? Talk about that for a little bit.
I think there's more parity in the conference now, obviously. They're definitely a stronger opponent, if you will, than playing like a Bethune-Cookman or a Miami of Ohio. We played Texas A&M, which was ranked at the time, and we beat them pretty handily at home. But that
was a good game.
It was a decent game, and you look at the competition, right? I mean, we see certain teams every year. So, naturally there's going to be some built-in rivalry there, et cetera. Last season, for me was a wash. It was Coach Cristobal's first season. We had turnover at the head coach position, at the both offensive and defensive coordinator position. I think we had 7 new coaches coming in. This year we have, turnover again at the offensive and defensive coordinator positions. So it's hard for the guys to get into a rhythm, right? And be playing in a system that affords them the opportunity to know where they're going, what their keys are, what their reads are, et cetera. So I'm fairly confident again that this staff is competent, that they have the guys doing what they need to be doing. There's still some blown coverages, right? So that's where you see some of the passing yards that are showing up on the in the team statistics right now. They're higher than we'd like. Both Clemson and Miami are very good against the run. I think we're both holding teams under 100 yards per game, probably around the 80, 85 yard range. And we just gave up 200 to a kid last week, so that bumped that average up for us. But I think that, like I said, the year that we had last year going 5-7, we could have easily dropped a couple more of those games. There is some culture issues, in the locker room that we were dealing with, some work ethic issues, et cetera. And coach has done a very good job of recruiting his kids, if you will, and getting guys that are wanting to come in and play in his system, which is a no nonsense, hard work approach. You can't cut corners. You got to listen. You have to be selfless and play for each other, right? And I'm pretty sure, every coach around the country talks about that stuff, but some of them enforce it more than others. And Mario's been pretty diligent about finding guys that he believes are willing to listen and buy in to what it is that he's trying to, to do here at Miami. So I think we're still a couple years away, but I do think that we're at least competitive. We haven't been out of any game that we've played this year. So, that gives me some hope there.
Right.
And
Kappa, you mentioned the defense, and I do think it's a pretty compelling matchup when you compare the defenses on either side. And obviously you talked about both teams are very good up front. Both teams are good at stopping the run. So I'm not sure that we're going to see many rushing yards either way on Saturday. And another thing that kind of, in my mind, leads me to believe that it could be a game that's on the lower end scoring-wise is Clemson has also really seen a dramatic improvement in their secondary. Last season, anybody that watched Clemson football, they could tell you that the secondary was the true weak spot of the defense, particularly early on. I mean, it was blown coverages, guys getting mossed and having catches made on top of them. And this year, it's been a great turnaround. Nate Wiggins has been the guy. He missed a couple of games due to injury, but that's a young man that has really just improved by leaps and bounds. Andrew Makuba is a 3-year starter. He's a young man that's very experienced, can play DB and safety. And then a true freshman that's really emerged for us is Khalil Barnes. And this guy has just come in and has really flashed early. To me, that's a compelling matchup. The Clemson secondary, which is so vastly improved. Can you tell us about the Miami secondary and where do they stack up? One guy that I'm looking at the stats, and in terms of solo tackles, he leads the team, and that is safety Cameron Kinchens.
So Cam is our returning All-American from last season.
Yep.
Complete ball hawk. The kid just has a nose for the ball. If it's in the air, it's up for his grabs. I think that he's had some lapses in coverage, just coming back off of a pretty scary incident that happened during one of the games earlier this year. He played, fairly decent in the Georgia Tech game, got beat, obviously, at the end of the game there for that game-winning touchdown. Got caught, looking in the backfield. And we saw the same thing happen again last week at UNC. So, that's stuff that's on film that the staff's going to review with them. He's going to watch in the game film room. If there's anybody that I have confidence in watching film, it's him and learning from his mistakes. You also have 6'5" safety James Williams back there, who is also a ball hawk, but more so a headhunter. He's looking to really, knock your lights out if you're coming across the middle or trying to come up top. I think that we have a very aggressive style of defense with this new defensive coordinator, Lance Guidry. And at times that's probably going to expose us to potentially some big plays. But I think for the most part, we get some negative plays that kind of counteract that. And keeping the ball, out of the offensive hands and in our offense's hands has been our best defense all season. So, running the ball hard, picking up yardage here and there, trying to convert and get first downs. We've been fairly decent on fourth down if we go for it, making those conversions. I believe we're at this point about, I'd say probably about 57% on fourth down efficiency. We don't go for it often, but when we do, we've been fairly decent in getting the first down. If you want to talk keys, we can go there too.
Yeah, and another young man that's back there in the Miami secondary that it really intrigues me because I could foresee him being matched up against Antonio Williams, of course, the true sophomore receiver for Clemson. He was the Tigers' leading receiver last year as a freshman. He's coming back off of injury. Or I could see the matchup with Tyler Brown, who's the current true freshman that's really put together just an amazing first 6 games of his Clemson career. But talk to us a little bit about Corey Cow.
A very active player. He's a senior for us. Kid's leading the team right now with 3 interceptions. Again, another ball hawk. He's a little undersized, if you will, at 5'10", about 180 pounds or so. But he plays a lot larger than his frame. Very, very visceral, very smart kid. He's played here for going on 5 years now. And, you can expect him to give his all. I think he's going to probably have some challenges with your larger receivers if he has to face up on them, but he's very physical, and that has a tendency to kind of equal things out.
Right. And, I think defensively, as you mentioned, and I agree with it, these are 2 teams that are very, very good on that side of the ball. And I think in a lot of ways they mirror one another, which, again, it leads me to believe this could be a game that's lower scoring. But let's switch gears to the offensive side of the ball. And to me, I think another compelling matchup is the quarterback matchup on Saturday, because you've got a sophomore in Cade Klubnik in his first year as the starting quarterback. He's shown flashes of being very good. He's done some really good things. At times he's struggled. And then on the other side, you've got Tyler Van Dyke, Clifton, and Kappa, who I think in a sense is still kind of feeling his way along as well. So it's a quarterback matchup to me that's very intriguing.
Yeah, I agree. I would say my biggest concern about Cade is his ability to run. He happens to be your 3rd leading rusher currently. So he's toting the rock pretty handily. I don't know if it's design plays or if he's just, busted coverage he's taken off. But he's run the ball.
It's about 50-50 in that regard.
Okay. So he's more so of a threat than Tyler is, right? Our quarterback is more so a pocket passer. His running is an exception, not the rule. And he has a tendency to stand in the pocket as long as he can. But he's been very successful this year. Thus far, he's got a very high quarterback rating. ESPN had him at, I think, 171.4, for his rating. He's thrown the ball 1,700 plus yards. You know, he's got 16 touchdowns. Unfortunately, he's got six interceptions. You know, a couple of those are garbage time, but a pick is a pick is a pick. I think that, you know, he's outplayed Cade, if you will, from a numbers standpoint. But, you know, Cade is equally adept at, you know, passing the ball. We don't discount that at any stretch. I think that, you know, the big thing is going to be for us, we need to be able to contain him. Our defensive ends are going to have to, you know, set the edge and keep him within the pocket, make him beat us by passing. You know, we'll see where things go from there.
So my question, my next question to you is, this is the number one offense in yards with Miami, and you're going up against the number one defense in yards with Clemson. So on offense, on your side of the ball, what worries you when it comes to Clemson's defense when you're on offense?
I would say if you guys are going to play man, we'll probably torch you, right? That's been Tyler's, you know, specialty all season is when guys match up man to man. I think we have the receivers that can go up, get the ball. If you guys are playing zone, I think that's a little bit more of a challenge for Tyler. As you can see on the timeline on Twitter and other places, folks are pretty frustrated with his ability to go through his reads. He tends to key in on his receiver as number one target. So, you know, if playing man, you know, long day, but if Dabo's willing to go zone, it may, you know, spice things up for us. Not to say he can't, you know, defeat the zone, but I think he's had more challenges with the zone than he has with man this season.
Yeah, and guys, I think something that could come into play here, again, is the Clemson defensive line. It's been such a good unit this year. You know, I'll be interested to see how Van Dyke will react and how he'll stay in the pocket, go through his progressions when that front four or front seven is breathing down his neck. And another player I think could make an impact on this game, and we say his name every week, then TJ Parker. And, you know, I think he's turned a lot of heads, not only in the ACC, but across the country. You start to hear outlets like ESPN and other high-profile college football sources talk about this young man. And I think if TJ Parker can have some success getting off the end and that front four can set the tone, I think it makes for an interesting night. I really do. And it's going to be a great test for Van Dyke to see if he can hang in there, make his reads, and go through his progressions when you've got that rush coming in your face.
I agree. So expect to see some tight end sets. We'll keep some guys in, right, to help with the blocking. Obviously, our running backs are very adept at, you know, picking up the blitz, et cetera. With all things considered, you know, we're still averaging over 500 yards of offense per game, you know, and that's about 70 yards more than you guys are. You guys have actually run more plays than we have and scored 2 touchdowns more than we have, but we actually have more points scored. And I think that, you know, when it comes to Miami, that's a key for us is to make our field goals when we're in position to do so. Dabo has shown a tendency to gamble on 4th down and try to go for it a lot. Not sure if he has confidence in your kicker or not, or maybe just the position on the field where it was happening. But like I said, he's 5 of 11 on 4th down. If you look at our scoring, you know, we have more field goals attempted and more field goals made than you guys. So if things hold true, expect our kicking game to be, you know, a key component in a victory for us.
Right. And Clifton, and you know, I'll say this, and I'm pretty confident in saying it. I think the going for it on 4th down as frequently as Clemson does is by and large a product of the place kicking situation. 4 out of 10, 40% on field goals. It speaks for itself. Like I said, it's an ugly stat, and it just doesn't give you confidence that you can go out and consistently make these kicks. And so as a byproduct, you go for it more on 4th down. But, you know, conversely, Clifton, and maybe if you've seen it differently, then you know. But to me, Miami is an offense that is more designed to strike quickly and to strike with big plays. And through 6 games, Clemson has just been a bit more methodical, not as reliant on the big plays, and has been more reliant on ball control, keeping drives alive. They would rather have a 12 to 15 play drive than score in 4 plays.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw a stat that said Clemson is, I think it was like 103rd in the country in big playability. So I totally agree with you on that. I think the Clemson fans want to see that big play offense, but again, I think that comes down to our offensive line a little bit because they've been a little inconsistent, I think, and then our receivers. I think from this is going on for 2 years, I think 2 or 3 years with our receivers, and I think we're starting to see a receiver pop up and really show what we need a Clemson receiver to be, and that is Tyler Brown. And then when Williams comes back this week, because he's supposed to be back this week, he's one of those other receivers. So I think you're starting to see what we need a Clemson receiver to be. So who knows? We might. I mean, we've seen the big playability, but we haven't had that ability recently. Which, when I say recently, I'm talking about like the Wake Forest game and a couple games earlier in the season. So,
I mean, sometimes you got to win ugly, right? And that's what I chalked that game up as. I actually had a chance to watch some of that game. Fairly low scoring. Back to your point, Garrett, about trying to control the clock, etc. Both Miami and Clemson have 32 minutes of time of possession per game, so we're both holding the ball more than our opponent. We do have a tendency sometimes to strike quickly, but we are adept at being able to go 99 yards if we need to, and as a result, we've pretty well managed, the time of possession, and it's actually gotten a little closer in the last game because it was a much wider margin prior to the UNC game. We have a tendency to get the ball, get a lead, and start running, right? And as long as we can keep the ball in our hands, like I said earlier, that's the best defense we can play.
Yeah. Right. And, when it all boils down to it on Saturday night, I think personally it's going to be a great ball game. South Beach, Miami, 8 o'clock kickoff. I don't think it gets any better than that. And we're all looking forward to it. So as we wrap this up tonight, let's throw some predictions out there. We always like to give some predictions before every game. So, Kappa, you're our guest tonight. You've got the floor. Give us our first prediction. How's this game going to turn out?
All right. I would say the over-under on this is like 48 points, right? I'm going to take the under. I do think we'll score 3 touchdowns, a couple of field goals, put us right around 30 points or so. I think you guys will probably come in, just short of that, maybe 30-24.
Okay. All right. I think I'll go ahead and go next. I think our receivers need to have a big day, and I think Antonio Williams needs to come out and show that he's back. Along with Tyler Brown, and I think we'll be good at running back. Hopefully, we can get those short yardage times when we need them. But I'm going to go – I'm kind of feeling the same way you are, Kappa, except of course, since I'm a Clemson guy, I'm going to go the opposite way. But I think the first person to 30 is going to win this game because I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think, in my opinion, a high-scoring is in the 40s, right? Yeah. So, but I think it'll be, whoever gets to 30 first will win this ball game. I'm gonna go Clemson 31. Well, I didn't give y'all a score, but I'm gonna go Clemson 31, Miami 28.
All right. Well, I tell you what, guys, I'm going to have the lowest predicted final score of the three of us that are here. And Clifton, I do agree with you. I do think the receivers are going to play an integral part in this ball game. I agree. Antonio Williams needs to come out, have a big night, prove that he's back and healthy. as does Tyler Brown. Look, Tyler Brown did not have a good game, and it's the first time this year in 6 games that he looked like a true freshman. So I need to see him come out and establish himself early and have a big night. Bo Collins, Troy Stellato, 2 more that I think need to have a big night. And also, and Kappa, if you've watched our games, and we've harped on this and talked about it at great length, Clemson has really struggled in the running game in short yardage situations. Getting that push up front, getting 1, 2, 3 tough yards when you need it inside the 5 or inside the red zone, or to get those big first downs to keep drives going. So against a tough Miami defensive front, I think that's going to be hard to come by. That leaves it up to Cade Klubnik and the receivers in the passing game. And I think they're going to have to carry the offense. I think the defense is going to have a great game as well against the explosive Miami playmakers. I said it was going to be a low-scoring game. I'm going to stick with that. I'm taking Clemson, obviously, 24-21.
Okay.
24-21.
You know, for obvious reasons, I hope you're wrong. But I do look forward to seeing you out there Saturday. Hopefully we'll have a good game, come up out of that healthy on both sides, and, let the best team win.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And before we hop off tonight, really quickly, just one more time, we want to give a shout-out to our sponsor. That is Arden's Burger and Grill, 1280 18 Mile Road in Central. They're your place to go for all of your game day food needs. Check out the double-dipped wings. They're the absolute best. We love them. And we look forward every time we go over there to getting a big basket of those wings. So go check
You froze.
them out. They'll get you jumping on and talking this big game with us tonight. And our listeners, if you want to see some coverage and read some things from the Miami perspective, it's always good, I think, to have a dual perspective going into every game. I think it balances out the thoughts and opinions on that. So check out Kappa Kane at Kane's Insight, I believe it is. Am I right on that?
State of the U. Yeah, Kane's Insight are
State of the U.
Good friends of mine, though. You can catch me on Twitter at Kappa Kane. You can also catch me at Caneville 305. I roll with Footballville and Caneville very tightly. If you want to check out our website, it's stateoftheu.com. And our Twitter and Facebook handles are State of the U.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, check those guys out over there. And I'm sure you get lots of great coverage from the Miami perspective. And you can come check us out at clemsonsportsmedia.com. And we'll have all of our game coverage there. And you can check out this episode of Around the Paul, of course, on YouTube. Just give us a like and subscribe and at Clemson Sports Media. And you can find us on X as well, formerly known as Twitter. And we still call it Twitter, just for the record. And you can follow us there at CU Sports Media. That's going to do it for us. And Kappa, we appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the drive down and can't wait to be in South Beach. It's a new venue for me. I like to try to go to a road game every year. Hard Rock Stadium's a new one for me, and I'm greatly looking forward to it.
All right. Safe travels, guys. Appreciate you having me on. And always, it's all about the U. Go Canes.
Go Tigers.
Yep, and it's Go Tigers on our end too. So we can let the rivalry begin now. But everyone, we appreciate you watching. Kappa, thanks again. And we'll bid everybody good night, good luck, and we'll see you on Saturday.